Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today is an award-winning designer who specializes in commercial illustration, apparel, and brand design, working with numerous national brands. But he's probably most quite known for creating something of his own. Something that's fun, silly, weird, a little wink to nod in pop culture while keeping a Southern California lifestyle. Please welcome the owner of Chomp Brand Graphics Co, Joshua Ariza. What's going on, Josh?
Thank you. Hey, that's a good intro, man. I think, can I just steal that whole blurb and put it on my website?
Yes. I think some of it's stolen from you, actually. So it kind of works out perfect. That's why you probably liked it so much, because you actually probably already had it.
A little narcissism in there, tied up. Yeah.
No, I like that.
Trying to describe what the brand is. I used to play in bands. I don't know if you ever played in a band or anything like that, but people always be like, what does your brand sound like, or band sound like? And listening to people try to describe what their band sounds like is like one of the funniest things you could listen to. It's almost because I think they're a little embarrassed to say they might sound like other bands or that they're very genre specific. And one thing I'm like trying to get better at is like being very straightforward about like what the brand looks like and what it is. And everyone has different reference points. So like, for example, I heard my buddy describe his band. He was like, oh, we would tour with the Black Eyed Peas and Arcade Fire. And I was like, man, what a great little explanation of like what his band would sound like. And being able to like distill what your brand looks like really, really like specifically, like we say it's like graphic focused, illustrated lifestyle brand based on the coast, and we kind of we riff on those things, but it's much weirder than that sometimes.
No. So I will get there, but I have to ask my usual first question. What's your go-to lunch or sandwich?
I'm a big fan of this place locally called Sessions Deli. And I kind of pick a different thing every single time there. And that's probably my favorite restaurant shop. But like right now I'm going through like a pastrami phase. So, this year, like I will pick anything with pastrami and coleslaw or pastrami and sauerkraut. And I just want like the most amount of flavors that every kid would hate. Like, I don't know, like I've just reached that, like smoked enough cigarettes in my youth, like had enough alcohol to where the taste buds are like, dude, we have to get something weird in there.
Yeah. No, I love that. So obviously you kind of gave me already, kind of gave me the pitch of what Chomp is. I'm kind of curious because I couldn't really find it. Where did the name come from? Like what was the inspiration for the name? And then I guess what inspired, like, to give people a little bit of a kind of like the origin story of how the brand kind of happened, because obviously you're doing a lot of branding designs and commercial illustrations and work like that. So kind of give people a little bit about where the name came from, and then also kind of what's the origin story of like, hey, I decided I wanted to do my own brand.
Yeah. The name is just an onomatopoeia, which is just like a word that is a sound, bang, chomp, zing, or whatever. So I think we wanted something that didn't have a lot of meaning behind it, really. Like we wanted something that was a little obscure. And at the time that I started drawing for it, it was drawing like sharks and food, and like it just kind of seemed like it worked as like as it paired with illustrations and stuff. So if you see a shark graphic and it says chomp, or you see a gator graphic and it says chomp, it just kind of like makes sense, including food as well. My wife actually came up with it, and we had a rolling list of about 100 names that we were working through, and kind of Googling each name and seeing where it would land on SEO. And so there was, we liked the name. It's easy to spell, it's easy to remember, but we also felt like it was kind of wide open as far as like the taking. Now, I did not anticipate a VC-backed beef stick brand called Chomps popping up, but we actually have pretty strong SEO, and so that's why maybe that's for better and for worse. Probably twice a year we'll get like an email like, my beef stick was gross. And I'm like, lady, you got bigger problems to worry about. You can't distinguish the difference between an apparel company and a beef stick. But yeah, it's getting harder and harder to name companies and name brands, and the USPTO and getting trademarks and stuff. So we do a pretty good job of maintaining our IP. And then starting the brand was really a buyer from Zoomies who is a good friend of mine, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, look, if you ever start a brand, I have open to buy dollars. I'll purchase some t-shirts from you." And so I kind of gave like a soft launch, cooked the brand up over like a weekend. Really, it didn't take that long. And then we launched in Zoomies with, some 50 doors. I'm not really sure. It's called a test buy. That's how, you launch with retailers. And then if you do well, you grow to bigger doors. So we've been there kind of on and off for like a pretty long time, over 10-year period. We have skate boards in there right now with Sector 9. And then we have some other retailers. So it was really not part of my plan or part of my vision to like start a brand. It just was like an obvious fun project that I could kind of start. And I don't know if you watch Bluey or if you have kids that watch Bluey, but
I love
they play
Bluey.
this.
I may or may not be brainstorming a sandwich themed version of a Bluey shirt because I'm obsessed with Bluey.
Oh yeah, we're huge Bluey fans. But
Yeah.
they play this game where they keep a balloon in the air and they call it keepy uppy. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like really what I've done with the brand is just kind of keepy uppy for like 10 years and then has pretty hot moments every now and then and really fun partnerships. And it's cool to kind of like leverage it as like fun projects. I would say I probably split my time about half on the brand and then half on personal projects, either for clients or whatever. There's no limit to how much I could work, though. To be honest, like I could work as much as I want. So it's kind of a dangerous game starting your own apparel brand. I could always be making marketing assets. I could always be testing new ads. I could, so in that way, it's fun because it's sort of limitless in terms of creativity. You have a lot more freedom for like making really fun stuff, but it is just like pretty demanding. Right now, it feels extremely demanding. So, um, yeah, so
You
that's the origin, and that's kind of the launch.
that's a I love the fact that, it's one of those things where you're like, hey, this opportunity came and it's just kind of like built and you're like, okay, well, I guess I might as well take a chance of this opportunity since it's available to me. And then you basically have been able to build off of it, which I think is great. Speaking of keeping up, I don't know if you ever seen online, but there's actual competitions of that, like on TV shows of people trying to keep a balloon up, and it's like, and they're battling over a car or something, and they have like
Oh,
a car. Yeah, it's like a whole
that's
thing,
really
and I think
funny.
it's in Germany or something like that. But
Yeah.
it would be part of my show if I ever had like a streaming channel of like odd sports. That would definitely be on there.
I feel like
Would be one of those things.
The Eastern Europeans are always coming up with new sports that just don't make any sense. I've seen like MMA inside of a car
Yeah.
before. I'm like, we gotta, we have enough sports.
Yep.
Yeah, but I would say my background is that I have always worked in apparel and kind of worked where like graphics and brand design overlap with apparel. In that place, it's actually called printables. So board shorts and t-shirts and even women's garments, dresses, roller prints, that kind of thing. So I was already pretty familiar with like the process of like not just how goods get made, but how they get sold into retailers and what sell-through numbers should look like. So, yeah, I had a little bit of the business mind for just like keeping it alive. That doesn't, I don't have the marketing dollars. I don't have the VC money that Chomp's beef sticks does.
Yeah. No, but I totally get that. Where so and I know you're obviously in Southern California, but we were kind of chatting before. I know you have some Florida roots. How did the whole thing go from Florida and head off to California? Where did that kind of come from?
Yeah, I went to Dr. Phillips High School. I grew up in Orlando, and then I went to school in St. Augustine, Florida, at Flagler College. So I have a lot of Florida roots, and then I moved here when I was 22 years old. So I have a lot of friends that live in Florida. I have family that live in Florida, and so I'm super familiar with Florida. And I tell people I'm from Florida when I'm out here. But I moved here when I was 22, just chasing a job at Billabong, which is the surf company. And that was my first job out of college. And once again, it was one of those things where I thought I was going to go into advertising. I mean, you and I are probably older dogs now. I'm rounding 40 here, but like, so everyone really back in like 2005, 2007 really thought, well, okay, if you want to be a designer, you go to an agency or, you can work inside of a brand. But I didn't really think of apparel as like a thing I was interested in. And the creative director called, called Flagler College because he went there and was like, hey, is anyone good over there that I should hire? And the teacher recommended me and said it almost like a throwaway job, like, hey man, if you want to make some t-shirts, you can go do this. And I was like, they were offering me a relocation package and they were offering me a salary at, it wasn't a lot of money, probably 40 grand a year or something. And so I was like, yeah, I'll take it, you know, because I'd been in Florida. I mean, I'd experienced my whole life there, so I was ready to like try some new things.
And it just kind of and obviously that experience at Billabong then kind of helped kind of accelerate based on that experience that you learned to go to get the Zoomies deal, and it just kind of perpetuates almost like a snowball effect.
Yeah, and I think a career is just about like some people have goals and long-term goals, short-term goals. I really don't have goals, you know, like I don't set like big goals. I have ambitions, but like they're not, it's not like, well, if I don't achieve this thing, then I'm a failure. You know, if you're on the road and you find like, oh, there's kind of a new pathway here, like maybe I should take it. I mean, probably one of my biggest projects ever was like sock design using Star Wars characters, and they ended up on The Rock and Justin Trudeau. And like, if you'd have told me when I was in college, like, dude, you're gonna be a sock designer at some point, I'd be like, that sounds lame, but it's actually awesome, you know? So like, I don't know. It's hard to explain that. I could just, if there's a new opportunity, I'm more likely to say yes than no.
And that stock opportunity is with Stance, right? Is that who
Correct.
you're?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. They have quite a bit of a bunch of flagship stores as well at Disney and things like that as well. So it's always
They do
great to
such
see
a
you
nice
see them
job.
everywhere. It's like, so I definitely understand that. I know that you've mentioned in the past like the concept is king. So I kind of wanted to get an idea of like where your ideas and concepts come from. Like what's the creative process for the brand of Chomp, like when you're coming up with things, because you have a little bit of retro, a little bit of nostalgia, a little bit of modern, and so I kind of want to just give people, I'm just kind of always curious on people's creative process on how they come up with their ideas and their concepts for their brand.
Yeah. Chomp would be sometimes like dabbling in what would be considered novelty tees. Now people are wearing a lot more graphic tees these days than they have been maybe even for the last 10 years. So that's kind of a nice sweet spot for us in terms of sales and, you know, acquiring new customers. Um, but we've been dabbling in just illustrated art on garments and headwear since the genesis, and it works more like a creative writing exercise. Actually, it's, you know, what are some imagery that I think looks nice or could be fun to draw. So I'm just starting with a long list of content that could be illustrated. You know, starting with the really simple ones: palm trees, sharks, beaches. You know, and things that people are colloquially familiar with or something like that, and then maybe just getting a little bit weirder each time and seeing where we could push it, and what does it mean to push two illustrations together, or how would it be if I draw this one illustration in two different styles. You know, there's just a lot of opportunity in play, and I think that I never, you know, maybe you're the same way. Like growing up, I listened to every type of music, to be honest. I mean, I listened to punk music, I listened to metal, I listened to rap, you know, and I never really just like was genre specific. And that kind of feels the same way with when I'm looking at art, which is like, do I like it or do I not like it? And I don't really care if it like fits my style or any of that. And so there will be people who come to me and say, "Oh, that's really like a Chomp style," and then there's other people who say, "Oh, you know, you seem versatile," and I'm just like, "Well, that's kind of in the eye of the beholder," you know. So I don't think too much about the art style of like needing to fit the voice or tone of Chomp, but I make lots of mood boards. I look at lots of things, and so it's more. I would say it's more of a creative writing exercise, like coming up with concepts, than it is like, you know, am I good at drawing snakes or am I good at drawing skulls? You know, like that's working backwards.
Yeah. Well, and I think also you kind of start as you're doing all those things, you kind of start looking and like, do they click? Do they fit? Oh yeah, this fits. I can kind of do these things.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love that you do on social is you ask your community. You're definitely quite like you do a really good job on social on the aspect of community and having that interaction. But one of my favorites is when you ask for like the two emojis.
Yeah.
The request like, hey, give me two emojis to create a design. I love that idea. I don't intend to take it, but I love it.
You
But
should.
I am kind of curious. What do you recall one that's been like your favorite? They're like, holy cow, like this is a banger, like this one hits, or has been like great that you've gotten from a suggestion from someone.
It's so yeah, there's like a few things to like solve for there. You have to make like an interesting illustration on its own, and like, can you fit two things together? Will people like looking at it? So that's just like one thing. And then will it be like a commercially viable product, which is like even more difficult, you know? And so just that own challenge, the latter one about making a commercially viable problem, this is the problem everyone is trying to solve all the time. So I've like add this extra layer of just like banging my head against the wall. What's fun about it is that I get to stretch and think about all different types of ways to make a commercial illustration from something. And like, does this fit into the zeitgeist? Like there was a moment in time where someone wanted me to draw like a raccoon and a trash can, and those fit neatly together. I think on the internet people call them trash pandas. So there's like something in the zeitgeist there, and then I can make a joke about being trash or calling yourself trash, and so then there's kind of like a fun, you know, phrasing that goes along with it. That one stands out to me, and something that it was kind of low hanging fruit. Then there's some stuff that like pops up that I never thought that would really work together. Um, and it, uh, we do this predator prey series called Never Worried, and it's always like the prey is in some tumultuous, inescapable danger, and the prey is like really relaxed during it. Did I have that upside down? The prey is the one that's relaxed. The predator
Yes,
is
the
coming at
predator.
him,
Yes.
and someone suggested a coyote and a roadrunner, and that was our best-selling T-shirt that year. And so, it was a stock standard Roadrunner. It was not the Roadrunner from the cartoon, and the coyote was constantly being mistaken for a fox. But regardless, the illustration looked good, and people were purchasing it, and it was doing great over ads for us, which are like prospecting ads. Those are new customers. So there's definitely moments where I don't really know what's going to hit at all, and then there's other times where I'm like, oh yeah, if I draw a shark and and in anything, that's the thing that people want to buy. But when you can get a hit like that and just kind of drum up a new concept, then that's pretty amazing. So I would say Coyote Roadrunner might be my favorite that someone suggested.
So you brought up something which perfect. This is like this makes me very happy as a podcast host to when it somehow transitions over. So I was going to ask you about the phrase "never worry." I've seen it in designs. I've seen it in your Beach Party Bunny book. I want to know where it came from and what message you hope you hope or wanted to convey to your to the audience, or what it means to you at least.
Yeah, sometimes it's like the phraseology that comes up is like usually comes later. So it would be, I worked on this thing, I thought it was interesting, and then maybe we just like accompany with a phrase. But that one had legs. Never worried, never hurried had legs to it. I mean, it kind of rhymed, and I should have trademarked it because I've seen some other people use it maybe. But the concept that becomes a through line, right? Just being relaxed in dangerous situations. So in a children's book, you're right, that did show up. So there was a lot of predator prey stuff that was happening there, and I read that book to my kids, and even the concept of being never worried is like super helpful concept just for a maxim for life. And for what it's worth, I'm worried all the time. When you run a business that has tentacles moving in all directions, like you're just getting bad news like all the time. You're getting good news too, but you expect or intend to hear some bad news at some point. Something's happening in manufacturing, or something's late, or some customers are pissed, or some retailers pissed, or your own salespeople are pissed, or whatever. Like there's a million bad things that can go wrong. So I do get worried. Now you start to live with the expectation that, well, that those things just happen, and we kind of move along. Hurried, I would also say that I'm hurried. So like I do things on very short lead times. My illustrations are happening very, very fast sometimes. I mean, you'll see sometimes like in the post that I'll post like I did this in a 1 hour illustration, or I did this in a 2 hour illustration, just to kind of like let people know not only do I not use AI, fuck AI, but also here's what you can do if you can kind of hone your craft a bit. And there's people who draw faster than me and better than me, but I just think it's kind of fun to be very transparent about those things. And so, yeah, never worried, I think, is a thing that we'll just keep around forever.
No, I absolutely loved it. And then speaking of the book, I'm just kind of curious, and I think you may have kind of given me the idea of where it came from. The Beach Party Bunny, like what inspired you to illustrate and author the book? Was it because of your kids, you wanted to do something for them, or what kind of like how did that transpire?
Yeah, I had like the theme, which was the never worried theme, which was cool. And then, because we live near the coast, it's always fun to riff on beach stuff. And then, yeah, my kids being, I think at the age at that time, probably age 3 and age 6 or something like that. And so they're the perfect age to read to. So it was like, look, I've always wanted to do this. There's no better time than now. And now my daughter can read on her own, probably doesn't care as much about daddy reading to her. So there was definitely a moment in time I needed to execute on it. I think I was probably overzealous about like just how well it would do. I get a lot of great feedback on it. People really do like it, but I think the book marketplace is just hard. Like your average order value isn't very high if someone purchases it, and so running ads against it's very difficult. And my audience is primed for buying apparel, and they're adults, so they're not usually looking for their kids. So there was all sorts of like pitfalls in like the marketing of it. I spent lots of money, not just like on the book and time, but marketing the book. So I would say aesthetically, I'm very proud of the book. I think it looks really, really cool. I think my ambitions were like, I was like, I'm going to be J.K. Rowling, and that I was like J.K. Rowling in debt from it. So I was like, so I don't, I want to do another one. I'm being encouraged to do another one, both by my kids and people who like the book. So, I like the theme. Maybe we'll do it.
Okay. No, I think it's great. I was surprised when I saw it, and it was great because I was like, I have a 16-year-old. She loves reading, and I always like, I sometimes will ask her, I'm like, hey, just to get a different perspective, I'll be like, hey, look at his website and tell me what you think. Like, what kind of stands out? What are the things that you want to ask? What would you want to know or ask? Because obviously I have my own selfish questions, but I'm always kind of curious. And that was like the first thing she's like, hey, he's got a kid's book. I was like, what? I didn't realize that. So I thought it was
Yeah.
super cool. And then I saw that it kind of connected with the Never Worried, which I loved because I love that series that you have. I know you have the image in the
Thank
back
you.
as well, which is it's
Hmm.
great. So I know you've worked with many great brands professionally, like the Nike, the Disneys, the Stances, the Red Bulls, but then your brand has also collaborated with a lot of different brands. I know like the big ones right now, Wilson, like you said, Sector 9. How do you approach those partnerships? And then how do they also and also to ensure that they kind of align with your brand?
Yeah. It's like, what are they offering and what are you offering, right? So, with Wilson, they're a legacy brand. They have a lot of really great, well manufactured products. And that just becomes a canvas for us. And that's really the same thing for Sector 9. And then we have a couple other collaborations in the queue. And that's how we're using them at the moment. They're the springboard for not only just manufacturing, but the development and the legacy, the cosign of like making sure that, who we're collaborating with is like a very legitimate company. What they're getting offered in return is like a part of the zeitgeist, a part of the cool, a part of, you know, uh, supporting artists. There's just a lot of things that they're being offered to. And of course, they're getting art, right? And even though Chomp is small, because they make art for such, large brand entities, the process is kind of similar. So they're getting the marketing lift from us and they're getting the art. So it's kind of a win-win for them as well. I think with other brands that we're reaching in the future, people do reach out to us wanting to collaborate. And I think a mistake that they make is that they don't realize like where we overlap, and maybe we overlap too much. Like if we're both illustrators, well, when we need to collaborate on illustrations together, and what does that look like? But one of us will have to manufacture it and manage that down the road, which we do. But like, I just don't think that's always the best fit. So how I nail those partnerships, like it's kind of a mix of like, sometimes people approaching us. We have a potential collaboration with a water bottle company that has approached us. They're my favorite water bottle company, my kid's favorite water bottle. If it works out, I'd be so happy. And then we have one coming with the Florida Panthers. They met me at the Adobe meetup. And then there's other ones where we've chased down, where I hired a guy to essentially just get paid on commission to do some work. So um, he's part of my team now, and he's as needed, and I pay him to do that. But it took a long time to really be in a place where I could even get good partnerships. I had to beg people I mean, this is 10 years now, so I still have to beg some people to even like meet with me. So at the end of the day, it's not exactly easy. So I would think if you're on the design side, you really want to think about what you're offering them and the perspective you're offering them. And so, because your audience, unless you have like a million followers, will not be like that interesting to them.
Yeah, no, and I love that. I love that perspective of that, and then also the idea that, which is great because obviously the idea of like what am I bringing? What are we like? What are we both bringing? Especially to whoever the partner is, because sometimes you can collaborate with a smaller brand. If you're a small brand and two small brands want to collaborate together, or small businesses, what are you bringing to each other to kind of help it actually be a successful collaboration?
Right.
Um,
And sometimes you want them to be outside your industry, right? Like, so that would be like, so like a designer collaborating with like a sandwich shop is actually really makes a lot of sense. It's fun. People are huge fans of the sandwich. We are actually doing a collaboration with the sandwich shop sessions later this year. And so we, you know, that's cool because we are a manufacturer, we're a design studio. They have a great product of their own in their own eye. And so that makes a little more sense. I just do get approached quite a bit by designers who are like, let's collaborate, and I'm just like, I if I'm gonna do all the marketing lift for it, like I think you could find bigger people to collaborate with, honestly, much bigger than me.
No, I get that. I totally understand that, and I think that's totally true. Just so you know, I'm actually not. I'm a creative, not a designer. So, so I'm always like looking and trying to and get inspired by so many different things. And I absolutely, if you do end up making something for a sandwich shop, I will definitely be buying whatever said merch is, because I am sandwich obsessed, and I'm all about supporting any way I can support anything like that. I know you
What's the best
sold.
sandwich? Wait, let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
What's the best what's your favorite sandwich over in North?
Well, see, that's a kind of okay. So I will say that's a loaded question because I get asked this a lot. So I will give you,
Top five? It doesn't have to be in
depending on
order.
what your mood is my question, is my first answer. Is it all depends on what your mood is.
I want
So,
a pastrami sandwich.
so
Where
if
am
you
I
want a
going?
pastrami sandwich, you're either going to go to Hinckley's in the East End Market, or you're going to go to Pickles over in Longwood area, and those are the
Okay.
two probably the bigger of the pastrami's. And Hinckley does an amazing job because he's like fancy meats and he just kills it with all what he does. It's not a traditional, just so you know, it's not a traditional in the sense that you're not going to get it on rye bread. It's going to be like on a
Right.
bun, but it is
Yeah.
delicious and it's going to be a good quality meat. Obviously, if you want something like an Italian, I tell people to go to Stasio's. Phenomenal.
Hmm.
Obviously, I'd be remiss not to name drop that I have a sandwich at a place called Gnarly Barley. It's an orange chicken sandwich with like an with a pickled slaw, pickled and
Oh, yeah.
cucumbers and carrots, and then it's got like a sriracha mayo. It's called Biggie's Banh Mi, is what it is.
Oh, I
Um,
love it. Yeah, I'm a huge banh mi fan too. Yeah.
and
A lot
then
of Vietnamese restaurants out here, actually.
So, and if you like banh mi's, they just a Michelin bib just was given to the banh mi boys. It's like a new little market. So next time you're in Orlando, let me know. We can meet up and have a banh mi together.
Oh man.
But they just got nominated for a Michelin bib just actually last night. So, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, man, I jokingly tell people that like sandwiches, I'm obsessed with sandwiches, and we definitely have, I will say, a very nice mixture of sandwiches for being here in Orlando. Everyone thinks of us obviously as the chain place, but we do have quite a bit. And obviously we have some places that are traditional, like a Beefy King that's been here for like over 50 years. It's making killer roast beef. They make a good pastrami and roast beef sandwich too, by the way. In the steamed bun. They've been open for over 50 years, like 3 generations. They're off of Bumby. So
Okay. I'll
yeah,
check them out. Beefy King.
yeah, Beefy
Yeah,
King.
I need to get back. I haven't been for a couple of years now, but it's time to go back.
Well, if you do, let me know if you need sandwich suggestions. I'd be more than happy to help any way I can. What? So you've sold over 2 million shirts, which is amazing and should like super amazing feat. I know, and I know it's like mostly like kind of bootstrap type thing. I have a few questions about that. So like, what's the oddest place you've seen someone wearing Chomp?
Um, I got two stories for you. One, I was at Disneyland and some kid was standing in front of me in line and his shirt was inside out and I could see that the label was a Chomp label. And I just like leaned over. I'm like, "Hey, is your shirt on inside out? Because you have a middle finger on it." And he like looked at me so confused, like, "How did you know this?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, I made that shirt." Like, and I know that at Disney, if you're wearing a middle finger, they will make you turn it inside out. So that was probably the best. Like just spotted it. He had it inside out. So we took a picture together. That was a good one.
That's awesome.
And then recently I was on a plane and some guy was wearing Shady Places, which is just like a snake on a palm tree. It's nothing revolutionary, but we've sold a lot of units of it. And he's like, he had a giant ripped but repair like through his sleeve all the way up to the neck, like the largest rip I could imagine, like in a t-shirt, like where you'd throw away your t-shirt, but he's wearing it. And he said, "Oh, my friend ripped it, but I love his shirt so much that I sewed it back together." So this is when I was on a plane to Utah. So I was pretty stoked about that, and he was much less impressed that I was the owner of the brand.
I was gonna ask when you see people wearing it, do you approach them usually, or is it one of like, I mean, obviously in some cases like this you would, but like because they're very interesting stories, but like on a regular case, do you ever like approach and just be like, hey, thanks, or hey, nice shirt, or do you or anything like that, or you know?
Yeah, so I have, yeah, certainly, maybe a couple times. The the reason why people wear Chomp though is that they like the graphics. You know, there's like people who know me, but I think they really are relating to like the graphic story. So like it doesn't come off as like, Garth Brooks seeing someone wear a Garth Brooks shirt, you know what I mean? So it doesn't have the same experience for like the individual. So I don't want to like disrupt their day too much. It is nice to see it though. It's like I used to see when I had designed in the surf industry or for Nike or whatever. Oh, that's the thing I made. Cool. But seeing your own brand, you're like, oh, that's really fun. I pretty much mostly see it either at the beach, the fair, or Disney. There has to be like a large mass of people, in a group
Yeah.
for me to see it.
I think for me, my favorite, at least for me, my favorites are when I get random people or people that I know that get excited for seeing people wear my stuff. So
Oh, it's
like
so fun.
like
Yeah.
that is like my favorite thing, or the fact that people will snipe a picture of someone wearing it, or like someone being like, hey dude, I just saw a guy wearing your Italian beef shirt in Chicago, and I was like, that's what it was made for, like that. Those are
100%.
the
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's
like,
your
yeah,
audience.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I've
like,
seen people arrested wearing Chomp. I've seen people in mugshots wearing Chomp. I've seen a reenactment video on the Weather Channel, someone wearing Chomp. I've seen, what was, there was somewhere recently that I saw. Oh, I saw a video. This is so awful. I saw a video of like a local news channel. They're showing some gal got assaulted, like punched in like a grocer or like some shop or something like that. And she was injured, and then she was wearing an eye patch, and then she was wearing a Chomp shirt in the interview with the eye patch of her injury. And I was just like, how did this happen? Like someone sent this to me, and I was just like, this is both awful and totally interesting,
yeah,
So I mean,
wow.
I've definitely seen it really strange places.
Yeah, no, and I think that's like the beauty of it. Now, I know you and your wife do a lot of having to do with the business. I know you've talked about, as obviously as the brand has grown, you have other people kind of incorporated into it. Are you guys going the route? I know like you guys do the social and the obviously the art and all that stuff, but when it comes to like the shipping and all that stuff, is that something that you're using fulfillment? Or you guys are
Yeah,
doing,
yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming you guys aren't doing that, because then 100% of your time would probably be doing the brand.
Yeah. Have you heard this word solopreneurship? Obviously
Yes.
just meant to
Yep.
explain that there's really one person operating a brand. And I was probably on the leading edge of what that would be called, well before we had a term for it. There's a term called a 3PL, which is third party logistics. Those are essentially, that's a term for warehouse fulfillment. But you don't own all the warehouse fulfillment, meaning they fulfill for lots of brands. And so in our warehouse, there's a brand called Seeger, which is like a surf cowboy brand, like a coastal cowboy brand, and much bigger brands than mine. And so they fulfill for us, meaning like when our product is manufactured, it shows up there. They send me a bill, and they just tack on like a percentage on shipping rates. And it's probably offset by, if I was to do it myself, I would have to have not just the space, but the personnel to do it. And usually they would like get a little bit cheaper rates. So I'm not really sure how that would net out, but I just wouldn't want to run a warehouse. So that's a contractor. Then there's an agency right now that does all the digital ads. So they have ad buying, meaning they don't design them, but they might cut together some videos, and then they create the ad sets and find the audiences, and those are the ones who are pushing your ads. So after this call, I'm sure you're going to get some ads from us, or whatever.
I've been getting quite a bit of ads from you the last few weeks. So
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah.
it's working. It's
It
working.
knew it. Yeah. So that would be like considered like kind of top of funnel stuff. So those guys are contracted. Then there's a contractor for the sales of our stuff. So they rep a bunch of brands, and Chomp is just one of them. And so they do that for other retailers. And then obviously we don't own our manufacturing. I'm not a printer or anything like that, but we work closely with like more local printers. And then our blank is kind of a fair trade blank. So the reason why it's called solopreneurship is like I'm the operator, but like no one's really like full time on this, not even me. Like, and frankly, if I was full time on it, I would probably lose money because like there's a diminishing return like with a lot of this stuff. And so, yeah, that's what the operation looks like. A lot of people touch the brand, like lots and lots of people before it actually gets to market. But I can't do it all. In fact, I'm just too busy already right now. I just want to design. I'm so tired of
Yeah.
like being a marketer.
No, it's exhausting. It's exhausting on the whole thing because, like, in my world, I'm pretty much that's what it is. But I also have a full time job. I do this. I also podcast, but I also run my brand. I've run my brand for the last 12 years. A lot of it is because, and it's just me doing everything. And that's why you see, like, behind me are like my shirts wrapped like sandwiches. So, like, that's kind of where I'm the one packing. I'm the packer. Like, this entire room, if I were to show you this room, it literally is like the size of a 1-car garage that's literally obviously closed up, but it's all just shelves of shirts and boxes
Yeah.
and me wrapping everything. But that's just because there is a love to it. I mean, obviously you're not getting rid, like, it's one of those where like, and I think that's like a good perspective to have in the sense that there's obviously there's got to be some joy. There's got to be something that's sparking it because it's not like you're, obviously it's probably it is paying some bills, but it's not making you where you're like, hey, I'm living in the lap of luxury. I'm a millionaire because you self-funding and you're building this thing.
Yeah. So I totally relate to what you're saying. I'm probably intimately familiar with how all those things work because at one point I had to do them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I shipped my own t-shirts for at least for the
Yeah.
first 4 years. You know, having a 3PL was just meant that I could spend more time doing other things. So once you get over like 50 or 100 orders a week, like it can get really, really difficult. Um, and and you also just don't get the best rates, actually. I mean, you could probably get some competitive rates through USPS or get free supplies. By the way, there's free supplies on USPS. Well, you have already paid for them through your
Yeah.
taxes, but they
But you
are
can
yours
order them.
to
You can
claim.
order them.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I'm familiar with how all those things work. I'll probably even sometimes pick up my product. Like, if it's done, I'd rather get that product today and then get it tomorrow. Then I'll just run out to Riverside and go grab it. So, um, I think being a founder, and you find that the best founders like of brands or being an owner of a brand or whatever is like someone who's probably good at a lot of things. Like they might be awesome at one thing. Let's say you're a tech person and you're just like, you're really good at visuals, you're really good at UX, you're really good at design. You're going to be like a master of that thing. And then you'll be kind of good at marketing, or you're going to be kind of good at hiring talent. You just need a little bit like another thing. I think I'm probably good at sales. Like that would probably be like the thing I have in my pocket is like meeting people, pitching them a good idea, just chopping it up, kind of maintaining a good relationship over a long time. That would probably be like if I wasn't doing this, I would be the guy who's cold calling you all the time, be like, hey, how's your home warranty? You need to know it. Like that would be my job. I'm pretty aware of that. And then I just really, really like drawing. Like it's also a thing that I would do in my free time if I wasn't doing this. And like, so I don't really feel a sense of burnout like making graphics. So, yeah, so solopreneurship has worked out for me, and maybe one day it has become a hazard for maybe potentially selling the brand, which is like if let's say a few years down the road, I wanted to get a nice P&L that looked really good and, talk about however many t-shirts we sold. People want to buy a moving entity that they don't really have to drive the ship themselves. The ship kind of drives itself. So that's probably the biggest hazard.
So Chomp turns 10, I believe, right, this year, right? Or it
Yes,
is
a
10.
couple months ago. It's
Yeah.
10 now.
So how has the brand, and I think you've kind of pictured it, but I just want to confirm if there's anything else that goes with it. How has the brand's vision and mission changed or evolved since when you started it to where it is now? Because obviously with growth and evolution, you kind of start having to pivot or figure out different ways you're going to go on this journey, right?
Yeah, I would say the core ethos of the brand has not really changed. It's always been about sort of coastal imagery, silliness, heavy illustration. Um, Obviously, the operations have changed, and the distribution has changed. I was a lot more you get delusions of grandeur when you start anything, obviously, because that's kind of like what motivates doing it. You know, you're like, you start a brand, this is going to be the biggest brand ever, or I'm going to be the biggest person ever. You know, you just have moments of that. And it's not maniacal to have those thoughts. It's just like you get excited about a thing and you want to see it borne out. I think I changed the distribution model pretty dramatically around COVID. So when we were probably selling to only a couple retailers and doing e-commerce, but COVID hit, and obviously Chomp is just so low on everybody's totem pole that like buy dollars were like drying up. Nobody wants to buy Chomp, and also people are scared of the economy crashing, right? And so I decided, and I just told my sales team, like, you can sell to whoever you want. Like, here's a couple doors I don't want you to sell to, but like, I don't care who you sell to, because I was looking at like Post Malone was doing a collaboration with Crocs, and I was just like, Converse kind of sells everywhere, and I was like, I just don't think this idea of like Chomp being elite or super closed like matters. I think the graphic presentation is going to stay the same regardless of who I'm designing for. I think that we should just open as many doors as we want. You know, if people like it and sells through, like, we'll rock with it. So that was really probably the biggest change, is I thought it could be more of a core select brand. And frankly, like, it's just very expensive to run like a high marketed brand with very small distribution. Like, that's the most expensive way to run a brand. And some people get the special sauce where they've marketed it in the right way that they sell out of their product and they're super profitable. But like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a rapper. I'm not like, big musician or something like that. So I just don't think the demand for my brand could ever be that high. And I'm totally accepting of that. I think people like the art, and that's why they buy it.
No, and I love it, and I totally agree with you on that, and having to kind of evolve and keeping the ethos to being the same, but at least kind of figuring out the pivot of opening up the aperture on how you want to sell it and where it markets. What advice? I have a few more questions left, and we're done. What advice do you have for someone wanting to start something?
The first thing is, like, when you launch a project or a concept, you will not get the celebration, the reception that you expect. It will always be a little flat. And that's not because you didn't do a good job. It's just because like it's very difficult to launch a thing. And unless you have like a PR apparatus already built around you because you've had a very large project, the nature of like being a person who with very little name starting a thing, like, it just has to snowball. It will never be a giant snowball rolling downhill at mass, like full speed ahead. It's just a little by little, like making successes all along the way. Take opportunities, just like doing sock design or even doing t-shirt design, taking opportunities that like you didn't really expect to, but you can kind of see how they would pay off. And then I think that's helpful too. And then being original is like really underrated. Like, I think that people should spend time being as original as possible, being as weird as possible. Like, I think that people see something that's popular and they want to mimic it or interpret it in their own ways and make a thing, and that's totally fine. But like, when you're small, you're afforded all this like luxury to like be weird and like make your marketing weird and like be as strange as possible or as high level as possible, because that's the time to do it. There's a cost of it in that it's your time, but there's not a cost for doing this. Like, people aren't going to lose their jobs because you made something really, really unique. So that's probably the other thing. And then you're living at the best time for like creating your own product and launching it. And frankly, like, it was way harder than 20 years ago to start a brand than it is now. And you can start a project and keep it up. You can play keepy uppy with it for a lot longer than you expect. And then for me, it's just like, I care immensely about my customers. Like, I really care about them. I want them to have a good experience. Like, their feedback matters immensely to me. Like, I respond to critical emails. I respond to negative feedback really well. And I want to give the people something really cool and have a good experience. So caring about your customers, making something weird, expecting that the snowball is just going to move over time. Those would be the kind of bits of advice about it. And look, it seems like we're at mass now, but like, I could be out of a job next year. Nothing's guaranteed,
Yeah. By the way, you do a good job with when it comes to customers. I have seen some of your posts about like some of the responses or information that some of the customers send you back, and it's kind of funny to kind of funny to see as that becomes some of your content, but it also makes it's kind of like I kind of shake my head because I'm like I am amazed by some of the stuff people come back with. But I guess if you don't have haters, then
Yeah,
what are you gonna
I
do?
mean, when you run as many, we're not spending that much, but we spend over 100 grand a year, like on digital ads. Like, it's going to land in somebody's face who is either having a bad day or just is a clever troll. That's a distinguishing characteristic. Is like I know who's a customer and I know who's a troll. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? So there's not
yeah,
customers are like emails I get or reviews I get. Those are customers. So I would never be really snarky with those people or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
If it's a troll who's like just trashing us, then I like to yes and that experience. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So
No, I love that.
I think that's a little bit better.
Where can people follow you and support you and do some shopping of Chomp?
Chompbrand.com. And then you can follow us at Chomp Brand, across all platforms. We just sold our first TikTok order. Like we were not set up on TikTok for so long, and we just sold our if you order through TikTok and leave us a good review on TikTok, and you just show me that you purchased through TikTok, I will send you a half off gift card, like for sure. Like, because I just want to see things roll there. So yeah, at Chomp Brand across all platforms.
It's funny because I've been on this train where I've been wanting to get on the TikTok shop, but then I've stopped because because then every time I hear something or I'm about to jump on that train, all of a sudden they're like, we're going to shut it down. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I'll hold off and wait. Oh, wait, we're going to sell it. And I'm like, so then I'm like, do I get on? Do I get off? Like, what am I like? I'm
Dude,
just going to wait. I'm
same,
like, when is it going to be?
same.
So I love
And
hearing the fact that you guys just started up with it because I keep getting it come up on my Shopify and things like that. They're like, we can integrate. And I was like, damn, I'm like, well, I got to jump on this.
yeah,
So
it was not an easy process getting set up on TikTok. And let me be absolutely clear. It is a Chinese spyware app meant to manipulate the American public. I'm sure of it. Having said that, they have great content and I like it.
yes, that is a that is the heart. Like, man, damn you and your content. I was like so damn good. And like I'm mesmerized by it. So I'm like, you can
Yeah.
find anything there. So it's amazing. Josh, I really appreciate you taking a few moments to chat with me. I definitely I've been a big fan of the brand. I love what you guys do. And I've always been kind of curious, so I love the opportunity that you took take a moment to spend a lunch break with me. So thank you very much for being on. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Joshua Ariza of Chomp Brand to come on and be on. Definitely check them out online. You'll see it all in the show notes for you to be able to do some shopping online. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to tell your friends. If you want to support my brand, check out Deli Fresh Threads. Do some shopping there. Sandwich selfies always encouraged. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.